Deep in the heart of Los Angeles lies a terrible and menacing monster, born out of the swampy depths of hell and unleashed upon the citizens of the world. A mass contagion of manipulation. It is the woke mind virus, a disease designed for destruction and despair. The woke mind virus thrives on crime and corruption. The woke mind virus wreaks havoc upon unwilling minds, brainwashing fear and unrest throughout the airwaves. Crime, poverty, disaster, despair, all run rampant under the woke mind virus. Local politicians fall prey to the virus's alluring power. Resources are depleted. Peace is abandoned. Leaders retreat in fear. If not defeated, the woke mind virus will spread throughout all of civilization. Only the people can put an end to this menacing malady. Watch and see if Los Angeles can defeat the woke mind virus.
Good morning, all. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, getting a little bit of a late start today, and you guys have a little bit more of a delay than I do, so I've been on for a few minutes, but yes, I wanted to make sure I did unmute myself, like sometimes I don't do. I was having some technical issues today. It's just with my streaming service. Everything else is fine. For some reason, the comment section wouldn't load up, and it wouldn't be a show without your comments. So I had to make sure I fixed that. Speaking of comments, good morning, Glesna. I was thinking about you the past couple of days. I saw some of your photos of your home in upper peninsula of Michigan, and it is just beautiful there. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Karen. Hopefully you guys are off to having a good morning. Good morning, Mary. And for me, just another long week. I haven't been here for the past couple of days due to work. I've had to work the past couple mornings. And unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow either, or maybe fortunately, I should say, in this particular case. And I hate to be so inconsistent with shows, but I have a lot going on besides work. You guys know I've been struggling with this situation with my lymph nodes and some lung nodules. And well, tomorrow I have another biopsy. It's one of those EBUS robotic procedures. They're going to go in and they're not going to do anything with sorry, I'm getting all mixed up today with the lung nodules, but they're going to go back in and look at the lymph node and try to get some good samples. The last time I had the same procedure done, it was 2 procedures then. This time it'll just be 1. So it'll be a pretty easy situation. But they're going to go in, try to get some good samples of that lymph node and send those off for testing. My doctor, he's like a multi-dimensional, I think they call it, or something along those lines, lung cancer specialist. So he knows all about these things. He does not think I have lung cancer, by the way. He does not think that at all. Thank God, but it's a matter of I keep going and getting these PET scans, and the lung nodules and the lymph node show up as hot spots on those PET scans. So we've got to figure out what's going on. It's not growing, so that's good news. It's probably, hopefully, just a local infection. It's just weird because, all my blood work is perfectly fine. There's, nothing that shows up on the blood work. So it's really weird. It's like, what is in there causing all these problems? So we're going to find out, hopefully, tomorrow. The last time they did one of these robot-assisted biopsies of my lymph node, it was just the lymph node was necrotic. I know it's a horrible word to use. And so that was all they got. When they did the sample, it was just infectious material. But that can happen with cancer too. And his words is even though he does not think it's cancerous, he needs to be 100%, so that way then it goes into a wait and watch situation. And I don't think it is either, but it's good to go in and get those samples and make sure nothing more is going on, because God knows our government is trying to kill us every single day. So you never know what might pop up next. So that is what I will be doing tomorrow. So unfortunately, I expect to be here every day next week, as I don't have anything going on in the mornings. Good morning, Sandy. Happy to see you. Good morning, Phyllis. Good morning, Vernon. And let's see, Mary says, how did the tests go the other day? Yeah, Mary, when I had the PET scan the other day, it came back again that it was what they call FDG avid. So it was the one that in my lymph node is persistent hypermetabolic activity. Now, the radiologist says that is suspicious for malignancy, but that doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of things that can cause a lymph node and lung nodules to light up. I've never smoked a day in my life. I have zero risk factors for anything cancerous. Good morning, Robert. And let's see here. And Donna says she can't comment but can reply. Oh, well, that's weird, Donna. I wonder why that is. Well, Donna, I do see your comment that says good morning, so hopefully you got that fixed. Karen says my sister is in the hospital right now. She went septic. Oh no, Karen, I'm so sorry to hear that. I will definitely be praying for her. No question about it. Tammy, so glad to hear you're staying on top of the health situation. Thank you so much, Tammy. It's a lot to stay on top of, but thankfully all of my blood work is good. Nothing at all wrong there. They've tested me for everything under the sun and it's all good. But it is kind of weird though, this nodule situation. It kind of makes me wonder, I started taking, when I started getting worried that maybe it is something, significant, I started taking these pills. I had them, I showed you guys what they were here one day, but it was sweet wormwood, black walnut hull, and cloves, whole cloves, ground up into a capsule form. And that is supposed to stop anything from growing. So it is kind of weird that whatever it is I have is still there. It's actually increasing in its metabolic activity, but it's not growing. So my doctor's completely mystified. He's like, it doesn't make any sense, that it shows this hyper metabolic activity, but it's not growing. So either way, the fact that it's not growing is good, even though now it's in some adjacent lymph nodes, still probably an infection. But I'll tell you, we got a lot to talk about today besides me. I just wanted to explain where I'm going to be tomorrow since I'm not going to have a show. But some things, lots of things we're going to talk about today. Layoffs coming up, some related to the loss of SNAP benefits, some not. We're going to talk about OpenAI and some very disturbing information coming out of Chat GPT. Because I'll tell you, they watch, they know everything you say. You might not think it. If you use AI, particularly OpenAI, Chat GPT, trust me, it's taking notes. No question about it. Some ways good, some not. We're going to talk about the 3-eye Atlas comet and the potential alien invasion. How can we not? Russia testing their nuclear submarine. We're going to talk about some information from Obama protests that's going on, Bill Gates. We'll talk about that right now. And of course, pardons, lots of things to talk about today. I think one of the most shocking things I've seen, sorry, my hair is a mess. Some of the shocking things I've seen coming up in the news the past couple days would be exactly Billy Gates. It would be exactly that, Billy Gates. How long has this shenanigan money grab been going on about climate change? How many people have flat out fought over climate change? I mean, think about it. And that's the reason why I played that video going into the show, the woke mind virus. Because how many times, how are they going to lie to us? Has anyone told Al Gore yet? Does he have to give the billions of dollars back that he accrued with this fake hoax? Now, remember, we've been calling it a climate change hoax for a very long time, haven't we? That's what I love about the validation that we're getting now. Now, Bill Gates says, oh, I was wrong. I was wrong. It's not true. There is no climate change. It's not happening. And did you guys see this? Did you miss it? I don't even know. But Bill Gates saying it's not true. Climate change is not true. In fact, people are going to live and prosper in the coming, many years. There is no such thing as climate change. We already knew there wasn't, but look what they did to us because of climate change. I mean, think about the repercussions here. Good morning, Kim. Ruth says, over on YouTube. Good morning, Ruth. I wasn't even sure if I was still on YouTube anymore. Raining here in South New Jersey. Man, Ruth, we've had our rain here. Vernon says, I have had spots on my lungs for years, and they decided mine was something as a child from playing with cats. Really, Vernon? That is really, I've never heard anything like that before. And Karen says, good morning. Good morning, Karen. And Donna, I heard a broadcast on the radio talk about climate change. It says that we're getting warmer because the ozone closed up and less emissions. Well, I'm going to tell you what, Donna, and I don't think I'm telling you anything. I think I'm preaching to the choir because you guys already know it was all a hoax. From day one, it was all a hoax. Now, I'm not saying that Bill Gates at some point didn't think, oh my God, the earth is going to heat up and we're all going to die. He may have thought that, oh, the oceans are going to rise when the ice cap melts. But you know what? Like I have said from day one, I think I've been talking about this at least since 2012 in my private life sooner, but I did have a lot of the shows I've been on, I haven't been able to talk about politics back in the day. So in 2012, I finally had the opportunity back when I was over on X, I think it was called X back then, 1380 AM. And I started talking about climate change back then. And like I said then, like I still say now, our weather pattern is cyclical. It is cyclical. The earth warms and the earth cools. Where I'm standing right now, guess what? It used to be a glacier. And I have all of these beautiful, clear, nice streams of water here on my property because it used to be a glacier. But guess what? Someday it will probably be a glacier again. I will be long gone by the time that happens. The earth warms and the earth cools. You can go back, you can look at the sediment in the earth. A geologist will go back and look at it. And the only people who say that climate change is real are the scientists who are getting paid from the government. They have to say that to keep their funding going. We've said this from day one. Now the hoax is up. It's up. What are they going to say now? I mean, can you start using your hairspray again? Can you start driving bigger vehicles again? Or is it what Donna said that they're going to say, oh no, the reason why we're not going to have climate change now is because we've all been good little children and we stopped using our hairspray. We eat less beef. So can you eat meat again? Can we start raising cattle again? I mean, it's just a bunch of BS is what it is. A bunch of BS. We all knew it from day one. Good morning, Joe. And Larry, as President Trump has said, it's a scam. It sure is a scam, and it's always been a scam. Drew, Donald Trump is destroying this economy. Wrong, Drew, because Donald Trump just brought back trillions of dollars from his trip in Asia. Drew, I wasn't even planning on talking about that this morning, but let's just jump into it. Yes, we've got lots of deals Donald Trump made through his Asia tour. We all knew that he was going to work out something with China's President Xi. There was no question about that. Now, guess what? China's talking about that they're going to be purchasing oil from who? The United States. Now, Russia's not going to be very happy about that. They're not happy about India, Trump, trying to talk India into purchasing oil from us either. But Donald Trump worked out he said at least $4 trillion in the works, money coming back into the United States. And Drew, I will give you this. Our economy is not good. We know the dollar has gone down, 40%, 45% just in 2025. That was like a month ago. It's probably more than that now. We still don't know if we have any gold because I don't think anybody ever did go to Fort Knox and take a peek, or at least they never came back and told us what they found. But we know things aren't good with the economy. That's true. But guess what? I don't blame that on Donald Trump. That's been years in the making. I don't blame that on Donald Trump at all. Things were doing pretty darn good during his last term. Now, I hope that they get better. I fear that they're going to get far worse before they get better. But hopefully, now that we know that cows and greenhouse gases aren't killing us, we can get back on the right track. Hopefully. Mary says a few years back, they even stopped making an inhaler. I know, you're right. That goes in your mouth. And how does that destroy the air outside? Mary, I know, because that was an inhaler I use. I have obviously some lung issues and didn't always, I don't know what happened, what started my lung issues. I'll never know. But I was using an inhaler at that time, and then they changed it. It was an albuterol type inhaler, and they changed it to this new, what they call HFA inhaler. And it's not the same. It doesn't work as well. And so my breathing was kind of out of control for a while when they first made that switch from one inhaler to the other. The old inhalers work great. That's just like what they did with the light bulbs. Now they brought the incandescent bulbs back, thank God. Because I was buying them on the black market, so it's nice to have a little more leeway there. But it's the same thing. We can't have incandescent light bulbs because they're just killing the earth. I'll tell you, I never fell for that scam. Never. I have never once, and please forgive me for saying this for those who are energy conscious, I have never once bought one of those energy saving light bulbs. I hate them. they're dim. They're not bright. They drive me insane. I won't buy them. I go and I know where to find my incandescent bulbs, and I continue to buy them. Robert says carbon credits, your gas automobiles regarding your oil services and transmission services. I heard, he said, no idea if it's true, that the reason the oil service on your car has been changed to 7,500 to 15,000 miles is because the manufacturers are getting carbon credits for the recommendation. My view, get it changed at 5,000 miles was full synthetic. If anyone has heard different, I would like to know. You know, Robert, I am still old school. Every 3,000 miles, just cut and dry. You know, I don't listen to anything they say. I don't. I don't care what they say. You do what you think is best. You know, when it comes to your cars, when it comes to gas and your oil, you know, do what you think is best. I'm old school every 3,000 miles because that's what it used to be. That's what I continue to do. And Mary says, China to buy a lot of soybeans. You know what? Thank you for that, Mary. You're right. Soybeans also added. Peggy says grocery prices need to drop for people to think we're doing better. You know, Peggy, you're right. And I agree. The economy is a mess right now. The economy is a mess. But you know what? People see it more in their face when every time they go to the grocery store, they're paying an outrageous amount of money for food. And it's kind of funny because I just read this comment earlier. I don't even know who this guy was, some kind of Democrat senator, but he posted a photo and he said that, you know, he's trying to live like a poor person so that he, you know, can relate to how they feel. So this moron went on Facebook and he posted a little plastic baggie with a banana and some tea bags in it. And he said, this is what I'm going to eat today for $6. And I think he said 20 cents. That's all he's allowing himself for an entire day of food. So he said he gets a glass of water, a banana, and a couple tea bags. You know, and I wrote a comment on there. I'm like, you're a moron because you you could do a lot better for $6. You know, I didn't say this, but I'm like, go up to Wendy's. Guess what? They have biggie deals for like $5 and some tax. You could eat pretty good. I couldn't even eat all that in one sitting. That would literally take me an entire day to eat what comes in one of those Wendy's biggie boxes or whatever they're called for $5. There are plenty of options to eat on $6. No, it's not easy. But if you're somebody like me, where back in the day, you know, when my son was little, I was a single parent for a long time. His dad and I split up when he was about 7, I think it was. And I'll tell you what, I worked 3 jobs, 3 jobs, 3 jobs. And I did what I had to do to make sure that I had a roof over my head, that my son had toys and clothes to go to school, and that we had food to eat. I worked my butt off because I didn't want to get stuck in that cycle. I didn't want to be in that situation where, yes, I had food coming in and maybe a few dollars from the government, but it wouldn't be enough, you know, to pay for a place to live, a nice place to live. It wouldn't have been enough to make sure my son had good clothes to go to school in, because God knows kids are formidable at school if you're not halfway dressed. You know, and here we have people who are living on SNAP benefits who they don't provide for their kids in any other way. A lot of times, I just watched a video this morning, some woman selling her SNAP benefits. I think she got what, 30, 2,500, something like that a month, and she sells them for $1,200 in cash. Well, what do you think she does for that $1,200 in cash? You know, and then we hear these stories. Well, I'm getting SNAP benefits in, but I cannot put clothes on my kids. My kids have been going to school wearing the same pair of shorts. I seriously, this is a true story. I just read this the other day. This woman, and I investigated it myself, quite honestly. There was a lady who said, well, I'm not going to get any SNAP benefits now that the SNAP is not going to be here. This is a local person in, I think, Union, Missouri. And she said, my kids, we need help. You know, can you send me money? Can you send me food? My kids have been wearing the same pair of shorts every day to school, and we don't have a place to live. We're living in our car, this and that. And so I went back and she also added in that her children's father, you know, was killed. It was a very tragic story, blah, blah, blah. So I went back and I researched her. And yes, I'm sure the pain is real. These kids are suffering, but I feel like they're suffering at her hands more than the government by far. You know, I went back and looked at her posts, and the guy that she says she was with, or the child's father, they weren't even together. In fact, I believe he unalived himself, sadly. because of the breakup that they had. And there was a whole long story that went behind this. This girl is doing nothing to help her situation. Absolutely nothing. She says, "Oh, I don't have family to rely on." I went back and found several family members. People scam the system, they scam you and your feelings because we don't want to see kids suffer. We don't want to see kids going to school. And here it is, it's cold outside, and they've been going to school in the same pair of shorts for the past year. I mean, come on now, that's not good. And Donna says, fully cooked rotisserie chicken, $5.99 at Schnucks. Donna, what I replied back to that guy, I said, you know what? I still, cook fairly inexpensive meals at home. I do, just because I don't feel the need to cook lobster and stuff at home every day, or ever, quite honestly. And you can go and get a pack of spaghetti noodles for literally 99 cents. You can go and get a can of tomato sauce, for less than $2. What is it, about $1.50, $1.60, depending on the brand that you buy. And I say this because this is something I cook actually pretty often. And you don't have to have your spaghetti loaded down with meat. You can buy a third, a half to a third, something, or a third, I should say, to a half of a hamburger for about $3. And guess what? Not only are you cooking for yourself for an entire day, you could potentially cook for your whole family. I can assure you, when I was young and I was trying to get by working all these different jobs, I cooked very economically. I bought bags. Right now, you can go to Schnucks and get a bag of potatoes for 99 cents. You look for the deals. I still look for the deals. I went to Schnucks and I bought 2 bags of potatoes at 99 cents a bag. I did that now. I just did that last week because you know what? We still have to be economical. It doesn't matter how much money you make. And let's see here. Dottie says, by the time something about 5,000, 5,000, you need oil with your oil. And Mary says that lightning makes everybody look terrible too, and it's blinding in a flashlight. And let's see here. Donna says, yes, at Schnucks. Good morning, Linda. And Mandy says, I always thought that only certain foods qualified for SNAP or WIC. When did that change? Well, Mandy, the way I understand it, I don't really know much about WIC. I never received WIC when my son was younger, so I don't really fully know. But I think you can get like baby formula and maybe a gallon of milk. I don't really know how that goes, but something along those lines. I think it only is certain foods. I don't know if people get WIC just for babies or if you get it for children altogether. I don't really know how that works, but I have heard about WIC. And I know back in the day you could go to the store and you could see WIC certified, they put those stickers on certain items. That's why I think milk and baby formula is one of those things that's WIC approved. But as far as SNAP benefits, in most states, now there are some states with more restrictions. In most states, you can buy whatever you want with SNAP benefits, and I think it comes out to be people get about $300 roughly per person. So if you're an adult not working, you have children, you get about $300 per person. I think is about what I read is the norm across the country. I don't know state to state, the specifics of that, but that's about typical. So, if you have a woman and she's got 4 kids, she could potentially be getting, $300 times 5, her and, or did I say 3 kids or 4 kids? You know what I mean? $300 per person, basically. But no, and that, I posted this on social media the other day, and trust me, I want to make sure my rhetoric is correct. A, because Obama will come after me if it's not. We'll talk about that later. But B, because I do feel for these people. I really do. I feel for all people who are struggling right now. And there's no question, there are absolutely people struggling. That's what I was talking about with that Chat GPT, OpenAI. They said their recent studies, because trust me, they pay attention to everything you say. OpenAI has reported that 1 million people per week who use Chat GPT. And just think about that. How many people use Chat GPT? And then 1 million of those people every week have some type of suicidal intent or ideology or something that they talk about or feel that they should take their lives. People are struggling. There's no question about it. People are going to struggle a lot more in a month without SNAP benefits. Now, we can sit here and run down the list like we did the other day. I think that was that Monday, where we talked about who gets SNAP, who doesn't, what it's for, some new rules that are coming up for SNAP and so on. But the fact is, regardless of that, these are people who don't have food. And I know a lot of states like Missouri, that Governor Kehoe just signed something yesterday. I think he's putting, is it $5 million into a food program? States cannot do anything. Now maybe they could, but states say they cannot do anything because it's a federally funded program. The state has no way to put money into that system where it shows up on your SNAP card. They just have no way to do that. And so therefore, governors like Kehoe, as an example, he put this $5 million into food programs. And what's going to happen is that's going to take food and it's going to take it out to area food banks, soup kitchens, and that type of thing to make sure people do have money. And I think we're going to see a lot of other situations happening. Mary, tuna and eggs, cheap protein. Yeah, there are certainly cheaper ways to do things, no question. And let's see, Robert, you heard the same, but I also hear that China is leasing land in South America to, did you say supplant our farmers in the years to come? Yeah, China is definitely not our friends. Mary says, snap stopping the junk food in some states. Yeah, that is happening. And Mary, something I talked about yesterday on social media, that if I'm not the president, nobody would vote for me to be president. But if I were, and I know this sounds kind of socialism like, and obviously I'm very far from being somebody who supports socialism, but the system is broken. The system is broken. Many of our systems are broken. And the SNAP food system is another one that's absolutely broken. And the only thing I can think of to fix that system, and a lot of people will disagree, I understand if you disagree with me, but would be go back to a rations type system. And that's kind of where we're going anyway. If you think about it, a lot of Republicans in Congress have said, hey, let's go back to these individual states, and people can have to use their SNAP benefits for nutritional food items, for meats, eggs, cheese, bread, grains, that type of thing, vegetables. And now no more sugary foods, no soda, no potato chips, no junk food. They're trying to eliminate people to be able to buy junk food with their SNAP benefits. So why not go back to a system of rations? Because I will tell you, SNAP benefits do absolutely, it is a vicious cycle. And I'm not downing anyone who's getting SNAP benefits, by the way, because there are a lot of people in this country who absolutely do legitimately need SNAP benefits. There's no question about that at all. However, there are other ways we could do this, because it creates a system of vicious cyclical dependence on the government. If you can go and buy anything you want with these SNAP benefits, it really does. So let's say we go back to a system of rations where each family member is allotted X amount of bread, cheese, eggs, meat, vegetables, that type of thing. And no soda, no sugary foods, no candy. I think back in the day when they did rations, they did allow sugar. So if you have your sugar and your flour, you can make, things, of course, with that sugar to make sweeter things at home. But no, not soda, not potato chips, not unhealthy, unnutritious foods. And then guess what? If you're getting SNAP benefits and you're getting these basic rations, well, you're going to have enough nutritional value to survive on. You're absolutely going to be able to survive on that amount of food and that type of food. And if you want the other stuff, if you want lobster, if you want to buy soda, if you want to buy chips and snacks and cookies, then you have to work to buy those things. And by work, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I'm disabled, I can't work. Well, I'll tell you what, most people, not all people, but a lot of people can still do work at a desk. And I don't mean a job. I mean, maybe in lieu of community service. There are ways to work around things where we don't continue in this vicious cycle. And yes, I know that sounds like socialism, but it's not, because to get more than those basic things, you're still going to have your capitalism where you can still go out and do any type of job you want to do. And once you reach a certain plateau where you make a certain amount of money, and which should be higher, quite honestly, the plateau than what it is now, because we have a lot of people in this country living in poverty who work full-time jobs, of course. And but once they meet that, reach that plateau, then they'll no longer get those rations again, because not everybody needs to get those rations. And Joe says the system is broken by a reason to buy votes. Joe, Yes, and it's even more than that. Mary says, there's a diabetes epidemic. These kids are eating too much crap. And you're absolutely right. And that's a lot of the problem with health right now is kids are eating a lot of bad stuff. People are more overweight now than what they used to be in the past, eating more processed junk food, exercising, moving a lot less. We certainly know how all that works. God knows I know how that works. And so therefore, yes, it does cause a problem. But to Joe's comment, the system is broken for a reason to buy votes. Well, guess what? I talked about this on social media. I think it was yesterday. I'm not going to reveal my source. I can't do that. I talked to somebody within the Walmart, let's say, us infrastructure, and I was told that Walmart is laying off people because directly related to the lack of SNAP benefits coming in to 42 million people around the country. Now, I didn't really think about this until yesterday. I'm kind of disappointed in myself that this never occurred to me until yesterday. And now, I know a couple of people said, well, they were going to lay off people anyway. Well, maybe, but I am told directly it is directly related to SNAP benefits. What I didn't realize is that Walmart is highly dependent on SNAP benefits. I didn't realize that the majority of people who receive SNAP benefits shop at Walmart. Then it got me to thinking that guess what? I live in a rural area, 7,000 people here. Guess what store we have in town? Walmart. We do have an Aldi also, but Walmart is probably the most shopped at store in this area. People come from all around because it's the only grocery store, from my house outside of Aldi, within about 30 miles. And then from there, it's just another Walmart and another small grocery store. For me, I have to drive at least 75 miles in any direction to find a grocery store that's not a Walmart or an Aldi or another, just small, chain, small grocery store. And so therefore it makes sense. We have a Walmart in what? Every rural area. Where are the most SNAP benefits received? Usually in rural areas where people are at or below the poverty level. It makes complete sense to me. Well, guess what Walmart also does? They vote for Democrat policies. So I think we see the cycle here, right? Here we have the board of Walmart heavily supporting Democrat policies to make sure that people, including illegals and all these other people who maybe shouldn't get our SNAP benefits, are getting the SNAP benefits. Why? So those same people can come and turn right around again and start purchasing food and other items at Walmart. It's a big cycle. It keeps Walmart going. No wonder Walmart is in every single rural area because they know exactly what they're doing. I've got a whole new idea now of what Walmart is doing, and that is scamming the United States government, scamming the people, voting for Democrat policies that literally keep them in business, and not only keep them in business, but push everybody else out of business. Anytime a Walmart comes in, guess what? Everything else closes because people continue to go to Walmart. So now people within Walmart are finding out that, hey, my hours have been cut. I was working 3 or 4 days a week. Now it's one. I was working 6, 7 hours a day. Now I'm only working 2 or 3. And trust me, it is absolutely directly related. And I just wonder if SNAP, and I don't expect this government to shut down to go on that long. It might. But if it does, Walmart, I mean, who knows where they're going to end up? It might be a very bad situation for those people. And let's see. Dottie, the biggest aisle in Aldi is the chip and cracker aisle. You know what? I did not know that. I did not know that. Donna says, relying on government control. You got that right. And so it's a big vicious cycle with Walmart. But here's what I'm more concerned about. Outside of that, we'll deal with Walmart later. What really concerns me is what's going to happen to people who don't have food. We've talked about this numerous times on the show. We talked about a little bit with Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard on Monday. I am honestly very concerned only because I'm seeing some of the posts that people are making. We talked about this already. A lot of people are planning, and I don't expect this to happen. Or if it does, I don't expect it to go very far. That on November 3rd, I think it's at 6:30 p.m. I don't know which time zone that is, maybe in any time zone, that people are supposed to storm Walmart, get as much food as they can, and just walk out under the pretense that they can't catch everyone. Well, I think that Walmart's going to be very prepared for these things to happen. B, I wouldn't feel bad for Walmart if it does happen, as long as nobody gets hurt. C, this is not a very good plan. It's probably not going to happen. But what I do worry about on a more serious, note is when people don't have food to eat, people become desperate. Now, there's a lot of people out there who you might say generally who actually don't need the food benefits. They've got plenty of money, they can go out and buy their own food. Okay, well, that's fine for those people. But there's going to be two different types of desperation. There's going to be the people, whether they need the benefits or not, are going to be angry with the government, angry with the Trump administration. They're not going to want to spend their money to go out and buy food. They're going to take their food. Are they going to rob delivery drivers? Walmart delivery is a big business. Are they going to be robbing, drivers? Are they going to go in and steal? Are we going to have a lot of stealing going on in the grocery stores? But then what about other people? Let's say people who are elderly or people who have children, people who are disabled, people who really genuinely cannot work for whatever reason, or do work and still just can't afford to buy food. What's going to happen with these people? I just read a report already yesterday. A food bank here in the St. Louis area completely ran out of food. They had twice as many people show up, completely out of food before the last cars came through. And so that is, to me, a worry. And Donna says they need to investigate to see who's really eligible. People are lying to get it. Yeah. And, they are definitely working on that, Donna, because one of the things that's happening, even regardless of this government shutdown and lack of SNAP benefits for 42 million Americans, is that they've already changed a lot of the policy. Going forward, we talked about this, I think, on Monday or maybe one day last week. In order to receive SNAP benefits, you have to work a full 20 hours per week to get your SNAP benefits. Or you have to work an X number, I don't know what the number is, an X number of community service hours, one or the other. Or you have to prove that you're disabled. You have to prove that you're not able to work. You have to prove that you have small children in the home and therefore you can't get out, and hold a job. So the SNAP benefits are definitely going to change, and outside of that, outside of those reasons for you to have SNAP benefits, each individual is only going to be allowed to have SNAP benefits for 3 months over any 3-year period of time. So if you're not in one of those categories of being disabled, having small children, or somehow ineligible to work, you're only going to be able to get SNAP benefits for 3 months out of every 3-year period. So they are definitely working on that. I don't want to spend too much more time talking about it, but I wanted to go down this list that I saw when it comes to SNAP benefits. 42 million obviously receiving SNAP. Now, this is something I found online. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I'm assuming that it is. Out of those 42 million, 4.8 million are elderly. That's the group I really worry about the most because they're just so limited in resources. 14 million are disabled. There are certainly a lot of disabled people in this country who genuinely deserve SNAP benefits, but that's probably the category where most people fraudulently do receive benefits. There's 16 million children on SNAP. 5.6 million people are working, but still below that poverty level. And let's see here. Active duty families, more than 20,000 active duty military families receive SNAP. National Guard reserve members, 213,000 National Guard members and their families rely on SNAP benefits. Over 1 million veterans are enrolled in SNAP. And, again, I can't, attest to whether these people are in the right categories for it or not. However, what's really a shame is that our own government doesn't pay people, doesn't pay their reservists or their active duty members enough to live on to where they're below the poverty levels. That's what I take out of it. It's a scary situation. And, when we come back next week, we'll have a lot more to talk about on this situation because we'll start seeing things unfold. Some people are expecting to get their benefits starting, I guess that would be Saturday. So Saturday, the first day when people won't have benefits. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people who are scared right now, legitimately scared about what they're going to do. Nancy says people may have to turn off phones, internet for field bill. You're right, Nancy. There's a lot of people out there who have cell phones, who have internet, who have other services they maybe could get by without in lieu of purchasing food. But I do expect to see some economic effect, with the lack of SNAP benefits. And Mary says, I think the first people served at a pantry or drive-through food giveaway should be people with a SNAP card. Yeah, I'm with you on getting I think that would be hard to manage a food pantry line just because people are constantly coming and going. I definitely think that people who are elderly should be able to come to the front of the line. People with children, second, and it's a tough situation, and I get both sides of it. Yes, there's a lot of fraud that takes place, and yes, there's a lot of people who truly, genuinely do depend on these benefits, and I hope that each state comes up with a plan where people can, possibly be provided with food. I do think we will have a plan. I don't think the government shutdown is going to end anytime soon. I'm going to tell you right now to muffle your ears, because I'm going to play this Chuck Schumer video. Then we're going to talk about a potential alien invasion. We're going to change gears really fast. And so I'm going to play this Chuck Schumer video. We'll talk about that for a second before we move on, because we have talked about SNAP enough today.
On Saturday, for the first time in American history, a vicious, heartless president is cutting off food stamps to hungry children, elderly who can't afford enough food to feed themselves, veterans who are down on their luck, all because he wants to use them as hostages so that Democrats will stop fighting for people's health care. We can do both: provide better health care and provide SNAP benefits to the tens of millions who need it. This president is a fucking liar. He says there's no money to provide food stamps because of the shutdown. That's bullshit. His own agriculture department said there's plenty of money. Every president during shutdowns has provided the money that's needed, even Trump in his first term. He is bludgeoning the American people, using the most innocent of victims to try and go along with his cruel shutdown, which takes away health care from millions of Americans. He is the most vindictive politician America has ever seen, and the most heartless man America has ever seen in the presidency. We're fighting him every day.
Now, here's the problem with that statement, is that it's not true. Democrats could easily cave. Republicans right now, what do they have? 53 Republicans, and they need, I think, the votes of, is it 11 Democrats? I can't recall the exact number there, but we need the Democrats to agree to this bill so that we can stop the government shutdown. Democrats refuse, they absolutely refuse to let go of the healthcare funding for illegals. Now, a lot of people want to say, well, they get hurt in an accident, they are going to lose their care. That's not true. Anyone that goes to an emergency room, whether you're illegal or legal, citizen, not citizen, the emergency room will treat you. That is what they do. That's the oath they took. If you go to an emergency room, they absolutely will treat you. Now, some hospitals, private hospitals, may not, quite honestly, but most will. If you're having a life or death emergency, a hospital will treat you. Now, if it's a situation where it's not life or death, there are some private hospitals that can turn you away, but they can do that to Americans without insurance too. So one rule of thumb is, if you don't have insurance, if you're here in our country illegally and you have a serious situation that needs healthcare, you can go. Any Catholic hospital will treat someone whether you have insurance or not. You always look for the let's say, like a St. Mary's or a St. Luke's or something like that. They will always treat people no matter what. So illegals are still going to get treatment for emergency services. That has nothing to do with this bill. Even Democrats have now finally admitted, I heard Chuck Schumer admit it, that yes, this is about healthcare for illegals. We want illegals to have healthcare. Okay, Chuck Schumer, it is up to Democrats to just drop it, to say, you know what, we value the lives of people getting SNAP benefits over healthcare. I will bet you the illegals in this country are also getting SNAP benefits. And they're like, hey, Democrats, we would rather have some food to eat than worry about healthcare. We'll figure that out later, but we need our food now. So let's hope. And I really thought Democrats would cave when that union, we talked about that on Monday, that government worker union said, hey, Democrats, it's time to back down. But nope, not going to happen. Dottie says, trying to redirect what he is doing. Yeah, Dottie, Schumer's an idiot. The problem is there will be a lot of people who will listen to him, and it's just going to create more violence, more vile actions to take place across the country. Joe says the real question is, why do we have 42 million people on SNAP? How many of those recipients are illegal? Well, I'm sure you were probably here, Joe, on Monday. We broke down that list. Only 30% of actual Americans, people who were born here by Americans in the United States, only 30% of SNAP recipients are Americans that were born here. So that will tell you exactly what you want to know there. We'll pick it up again next week because there's still a lot more to talk about. Joe says same old story with Democrats, especially the Chucky. You got that right. Whatever they accuse Trump for, or any of us for doing, they are actually the ones who are doing it. You got that right. Donna says the illegals are using the emergency room as a doctor's visit. They are, Donna, but this bill isn't going to stop that. It's not going to stop that. They want to use the emergency room as a doctor's office. And it's not just illegals. There's a lot of people who use the emergency room as a doctor's office. So that is not uncommon. That's going to have to be up to the hospitals, medical facilities to stop that. But this bill, that's why I'm saying Democrats just need to leave it alone. They just need to drop it, let the people eat, and then we'll sort it all out later. That's what I say, but nobody cares what I've got to think. Anyway, so moving on, we've spent a lot of time talking about that because it is a very important issue. If you're somebody out there and you're struggling and you're really worried, and trust me, most people who are truly struggling and worried about how they're going to eat their next meal, they're not going to be talking about it. They're not going to be commenting on it. But I know you're out there. I've received some private messages from different people, and I get it. I totally get it. We have to come up with solutions, no question. There are genuinely real people out there who are struggling right now who do not have food, and we have to come up with a solution for this process. In the meantime, if you plan on going to one of the many food banks in the area, make sure you get there early because food will absolutely sell out. I won't be surprised if fights don't break out, or worse, everybody's going to be clamoring to get their hands on some food. It makes me nervous. I'm going to go to the grocery store today. I'm probably going to stay away most days because as people become more desperate if the situation isn't resolved, you just never know what might happen. So on to the aliens. I know this is a huge, huge switch because we got a lot of other things to talk about, but this is an important one because I've said I don't know how many times the Comet 3I Atlas, it's just a comet. That's it. It's just a comet, just like any other comet. I keep seeing these videos of it near the sun. I'm like, well, it still looks like a comet. To me, it doesn't look any different than Lemon did when it passed through. But we have other people who say different. I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a scientist by any means. I don't even have a telescope to look at it myself. So I want to play this short video with Avi Loeb. And he is the Israeli astrophysicist who continues. He said this from day one. He continues to say there is something not normal with this comet. It's not normal. And it's kind of weird, because I woke up this morning and I had this crazy, crazy dream last night. Now, I have a lot of crazy dreams. If you know me, you might know that. But this crazy dream I had last night was I was somewhere and some guy stopped me and told me I was leaving like some business. And he's like, look up in the sky, they're here. And I'm like, they're here. And I looked up and he's like, look at this it was a real cloudy day. And he's like, look at this little spot of blue sky here, in between the clouds. And I looked, and sure enough, there was this little object like around between the clouds, back and forth. And then I looked and I saw him in other areas too. So I hurried up, went home, started calling family members. I'm like, you guys need to be careful. Something is going on here. The aliens, they're here. If you look up in the sky, you can see them. And sure enough, if you look up in the sky, you can see them zipping around. And then what was weird is I woke up this morning, I saw this video with Avi Loeb, and I thought I'm going to have to play that. Yes, it was a crazy dream, just a dream, but it was a wild dream. I woke up with this thought in my head, like they're here. And that really does play into some other things too, because if you go out there right now, I personally think it's just more media coverage than it is that there's really more objects up in the sky. But the media coverage is everywhere. There's no question that they want us to think we're on the edge of an alien invasion, whatever it is you think aliens are, supernatural beings or true, people from outer space. I'm going to do a whole separate show on this, by the way. I don't know if I'll be able to get it done by next week, but it's coming. We're definitely going to be talking about these things. But in the meantime, I'm going to play this video with Avi Loeb before I go down another rabbit hole, and we're going to see what he has to say. And then we're going to talk about it for just a moment before we move on to some other things.
Seeing here is the glow of light around the object from scattering sunlight. And the question is, what is producing that light? What is scattering sunlight? And the unusual thing about it, as soon as this was released, the comet experts said, oh yeah, now it's proven it's a comet. No, but I said, look, it's the sun facing emission that is elongated. It's not the other side. The extent of the glow backwards away from the sun is the same as sideways. You don't see any cometary tail here.
Right.
And in fact, we're looking at it just like a cigar along the long axis. So it should be 10 times longer than it is wide if you were to look at it from the side. Amazingly, the best image was obtained on October 2nd, 2025, when 3i Atlas came within 30 million kilometers of Mars. And it was taken by the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is operated by NASA. As you remember, October 1st was the government shutdown. So October 2nd, the data was taken, but it was never released. I wrote to the principal investigator of HiRISE, asked, can I get the data? I'm a scientist, you can do the press release afterwards. I would like to see it.
Right.
No response. And so it's already 3 weeks.
Okay, so one of the other things that he talks about, sorry, my hair is driving me nuts this morning. I have one of those cowlicks right here, so it makes my hair on the side go crazy. So I'm sorry if I keep messing with it. But one of the things Avi Loeb talks about in a separate video that I'm not going to play, he also talks about, how for a long time there's been this pinging sound they hear from some far off galaxy. They've never been able to figure out what it is, but astrophysicists, other scientists all over the world have heard it, and they've always tried to figure out, well, what is that sound? Where is it coming from? Now, Avi Loeb believes that wherever Atlas Comet is coming from is from that sound. He said it's coming from the direction of that sound. He believes that he hears the same pinging coming from 3i Atlas, which is kind of interesting. That doesn't mean it's not a comet. A comet, but at the same time, it is weird that he claims that not only is 3i Atlas coming from the same direction as the sound we've been hearing, or pulses, they call them pulses, but also it's coming from the comet itself, according to him. I don't know, but I do feel like this guy really genuinely believes something is coming that is not natural at all. And then other scientists say that's all just ridiculous, a bunch of BS. It is nothing but a comet. We see it, it's passing by the sun. In fact, it took on some pretty heavy cosmic rays, and they said it would disintegrate anything else. But this thing is huge. What is it, like 100 tons? Something along those lines. It's absolutely huge. So therefore, all we could do, like anything else, is wait and see. But I do think it's interesting that all over the news, everybody's talking about aliens. Everybody's talking about alien invasion. Everybody's talking about all the UFOs. And it's true. Here's the thing. Part of this is true. Are we going to be invaded by aliens? I don't think so. But it is absolutely true that more people are seeing things in the sky. And it's also true that the media is talking about it more. Now, of course, we have that, what is it called? The Age of Disclosure coming up in November. Is that November 21st? I can't recall, where Marco Rubio talks about, the government and UFOs and so on, and these extra dimensional beings. We have J.D. Vance talking about it, saying he has access to some of the information. He just has to go in and look. He believes they're angels and demons, is his direct statement. And he's going to talk about it more. We know Rubio's going to talk about it in that Age of Disclosure video. Is that on Netflix? I think it is. I don't remember if it's Netflix or Amazon, but I know people are messaging me and they're saying, you know what? I was looking up in the sky tonight and I saw one. Somebody claimed that there was a camera on Donald Trump when he was in, I don't remember, I think it was in China or Japan. I can't remember which camera it was. I did see it. I didn't see anything too unusual, but they're like, look, there's a UFO. Then the camera stopped. People are absolutely seeing more. The media is reporting on it more. Are they gaslighting us? Or is there truly something going on where we're having more activity? I will leave that up to you to decide. And Joe Fry says, aliens, face, blue, wide eyes. That's what I keep hearing. And Dottie, how do they know what it weighs? Yeah, I don't know, Dottie. I think they just, it is kind of odd that they would know, because they keep saying that, it's X, miles wide. The only thing I can guess is with certain telescopes. Well, they were able to view it with the James Webb telescope. And then guess what? They stopped those images. And like Avi Loeb says, they could see it with the Mars rover. Well, then guess what? That also stopped. But, I really firmly still believe, and I don't care if you get upset with me or not, I don't think we have a rover on Mars. So when he wanted to see these images, I'm pretty sure he didn't get them because there's no rover on Mars. I really don't think that. And, or maybe if you're going to go down the rabbit hole, maybe the Mars rover was destroyed. I don't know. Because the last image I saw from Mars rover, the sky was blue on Mars and it looked like water on the ground. So I don't think that the rover's on Mars. I really don't. Or what's going on Mars, they've completely lied to us about. So as the 3i Atlas gets closer, as more people look at it, hopefully we'll get some more information. Right now, the reason why we're hearing so much about it being an alien mothership or potentially bringing in an alien invasion is just because there are a handful of scientists who are in the media more, talking more about what they think it is. And of course, we're going to grasp onto that because it is unusual, for somebody to say something like this. I still think it's just a comet, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, because it's coming through, we're seeing more of these UFOs, more things going on. We also see more UFOs. This is true. And more sightings when we have nuclear talks going on. Have you noticed that? We know, and they're going to talk about that in the age of disclosure, meeting. One of the things Marco Rubio talks about is, yes, it's absolutely true that these unidentified objects absolutely do, fly over our nuclear sites. They have turned off nuclear warheads. We know this is true based on what they tell us, that it's true. And there is a lot going on with nuclear weapons. Think about this. We have those Tomahawks potentially, hopefully not going to Ukraine. We have Russia, countering back, talking about nuclear weapons. They just tested their Poseidon submarine, which they claim is a doomsday weapon. It is capable of creating a nuclear tidal wave that they said would completely disintegrate anything along the shore. And the submarine can absolutely travel to the coast of the United States. I don't expect that to happen. I don't expect any threat to take place. But then we have Donald Trump coming back and countering and saying, hey, we're going to start testing our nuclear weapons, in counter to what Russia's doing with the Poseidon. So it's a lot of bluffing back and forth. I don't expect anything to happen. I don't expect us to have any kind of nuclear incident in our entire lifetimes or our children's lifetimes or our grandchildren's lifetimes for that matter. But there is a lot of bluffing back and forth and a lot of talk. Now, there, like Colonel Joe Adams will tell you, though, there are people out there, terror organizations that do have, dirty bombs. There's no question. As he has stated, there's a backpack that's missing that has a nuclear weapon in it. There are certainly ways nuclear weapons can go off in other capacities, but I don't expect any government to launch a nuclear weapon. And so it doesn't surprise me with all the nuclear talk that we're seeing more of these different encounters. And we'll probably see a lot more. The more we talk about it, the more the government discloses to us, I think the more we're going to see. And I absolutely do believe that they are not of our government, not of this world. And I'm not saying that they didn't start here in the world. Maybe they're not from outer space, like so many say, but it is something unusual. It's not humans, it's not the government. There is definitely something more to it. And maybe the interdimensional beings. I personally think they're future humans. They've been here all along and have learned their technology at one point became so great that they do travel between different dimensions. That's my personal viewpoint. Again, I plan on having a whole show about that on another day. And so let's jump to some other stuff here because I don't have a whole lot of time. I've got to get to work. Some of the other things I want to talk about, Obama, it came out of nowhere. He's asking various governments around the world to censor social media posts because we're becoming too polarized. He wants dissenting opinions to be censored. Now, dissenting opinions, I don't know what he means by that. And I didn't see anybody explain it. Are we the dissenting opinions? Is it just everybody who's talking about polarized political beliefs? I think that we have to censor ourselves. That's how I feel. We have to censor ourselves. There's a lot going on right now in the world. And I think that we're more divided than we've ever been. And I think we have to censor ourselves. We have to try to bridge that gap and not be as divided as we are. But we cannot allow it to come to the government like Obama would like to see. I know I don't want to see that happen. I don't want the government being any part of censorship. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But he thinks it's dangerous speech, the opinions people are posting, rising, and that we need to censor those polarizing voices. But all those polarizing voices, I would think, are just about everybody these days, because people have really drawn their line in the sand. You're either here or you're there. And we've really lost our middle ground, which worries me. Because I've always said, first of all, I am not a Republican. I've said that from day one. I am not a Republican. Yes, I like Donald Trump. I am not a Republican. The Republicans in Congress are just as bad as the Democrats in Congress. There might be one, two, three that are good, but is the rest of them are all just bad. They're all just about lining their own pockets. They're sitting around, having bonbons and Twinkies right now, while the rest of America, 42 million people, aren't going to have food to eat. So I don't care about Congress. I could care less. I could care less about the Republican Democrat Party. I do care versus bad people. That's what's on my mind, the good versus the bad. And I used to feel like the majority of Americans were like myself. I call myself a middle of the roader. I'm right in between. I have some liberal beliefs, mostly conservative beliefs. I am by far not very far on the right. I'm not. I'm in the middle. I am a middle of the roader. I've always been that way. And I've always believed that the majority of Americans were also in that middle of the road. Now, maybe some of us are right of center, some of us are left of center, but that we all have common ground. But I'm seeing that common ground dissipating. People are moving further to the right, further to the left, and we have less of us people there in the middle. And I see it. I absolutely do see it, and it terrifies me. I want to see more Americans move back to that middle ground, because if we stay in the middle, we can work out agreements. We can have a topic that is so incredibly different in opinion, but we can find ways to resolve it. But if we continue to move further to the right, further to the left, we're going to be so, like Obama said, so polarized that we're going to have a tough time getting it back together. So I'm not in favor of censorship by any means, but we do have to watch our own rhetoric. We have to watch ourselves. We have to try to unite people and not continue to divide people. It absolutely does worry. It absolutely worries me. And Joe, did we ever find out who planted the bomb on January 6th? Well, we don't know, but we know they know. They can take this facial recognition system and see, an eyelash, and they know who you are. So yes, I have no doubt in my mind the government knows who it is. It's one of their own operatives. Therefore, we're never going to find out. And Joe says they are already doing it in the UK. Yes, they are, Joe. And that's what people like Obama would like to see happen. The UK, if you talk to me in the UK, the liberals will say, well, what you hear in America is not true. The conservatives will say, we're in a bad situation right now. We're going to have a civil war. Things are even further escalated there than they are here. But what actually happened here? So we got to keep an eye on what's going on over in the UK, because man, they're in the midst of it right now. Rapes, murders, homicides. I don't know if you guys saw it. There was a video. I'm not going to play it. I didn't save it, but there was a video out there of a woman calling into some news channel, and she's live, and she talks about how she lives in somewhere in the UK, and she's terrified. She's had coworkers murdered. Her friend was murdered. She doesn't allow her children to go out by themselves. And it's all because they have these people coming in from other countries that are not assimilating. And guess what? They're sexually assaulting and murdering all of the people. So it is definitely a problem. Let's hope that we don't allow that to happen here in the United States. We've seen isolated incidents, but over there, it's much more than an isolated incident. We cannot allow that to happen here. And speaking of exactly that, protests and so on, keeping an eye on these protests that are taking place in Portland, Broadview, Illinois, Los Angeles, different places around our continues to be violent. Yes, they're doing a better job, but I saw a video yesterday. I'm like, how are we allowing this to happen? Here we have Border Patrol, ICE agents, local police departments. These people are, congregating. They are so close to these officers. These officers are tangling with people who've done something atrocious, trying to make an arrest. And you have the mob come up and they're grabbing on the police officers. They're trying to separate the police officer from the person they're trying to arrest. At any time, they could grab the weapon of these police officers at any time. And I'm actually surprised that the police officers and the agents have used as much restraint as they have. How are we in America allowing this to happen? Why don't we have more forces there? And if you cross a line, and you touch a police officer when they're trying to make an arrest, guess what? You go to jail for a really long time. Maybe that would stop people from doing this. These police officers, these federal agents, they're not paid enough to put their lives on the line like they're doing right now. They're doing that to keep us safe. You know what? If Obama wants to talk about polarizing, dissenting opinions, why isn't Obama instead using his voice to tell people, hey, take it easy, calm down, go home, stop being violent? Because Obama, as you know, he deported a lot of folks. A lot of folks. I don't remember any Democrats at that time or any liberals going after ICE agents or Border Patrol back when Obama was deporting people. Prior to Trump, Obama deported more people than any other president ever had. So, I think we all know the answer to that. But they need to tell these people, Democrats, go home, go home. But they're not. What are they doing instead? They're giving them the home addresses of ICE agents of Border Patrol. They're doxing them publicly. They're following them around. They were creating websites so that these violent people know where they're going to be next. And how does that result? I just saw an incident of it this morning where there was a woman who was on one of these websites. She found out why ICE and Border Patrol were going to be, and she followed them. Now, they did block her in and arrest her. But what if she was a more dangerous person? What if she had weapons? What if she had explosives? And trust me, those people are out there. We've got to do something now. On November 5th, guess what? Millions of people supposed to descend on Washington, D.C. to demand that Donald Trump, that his presidency is ended. So that should be interesting to see. Hopefully nonviolent. If liberals and Democrats have learned anything, I hope they can manage to go out and peacefully protest and be nonviolent. That's my hope anyway. Good morning, Bill. Anyway, I have got to run. I have been on a few minutes too late. We'll eventually. I didn't talk today about the pardons with the auto pen being null and void, arrests coming. I think that kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? Arrests are coming, and hopefully Hunter Biden is at the top of that list, and we'll go down the Biden crime family from there. But I have to run because I have to go to work. I do hope you guys all have a really good weekend. Unfortunately, I will not be here tomorrow. I'm getting my biopsy done. I hope to have some results soon. Maybe on Monday, whenever I'm back, and I will be here on Monday. Maybe on Monday, I'll have some news to report, and it'll hopefully be good news. But either way, thank you guys all so much for joining me today. I hope you guys all have a really great Halloween. I don't celebrate Halloween, so I won't be doing anything for that. But I do hope you guys have a good week, especially if you'll have little kiddies out trick-or-treating. For whatever reason, in my area, they did the trick-or-treating last week. I don't get it. Things are not the way they used to be. When I was a kid, you trick-or-treated on Halloween. Didn't matter if it rained, because it did every single Halloween. And you got home from school. You did what you had to do. You got your costume on. You went out trick-or-treating, and you trick-or-treated till what? 10 o'clock at night. Then you went home and you had your giant pillowcase full of candy that you had to search over, remember, for razor blades and needles and drugs. Things have definitely changed, and maybe that's why they've changed. But I do hope you guys. Oh, thank you, Kim. I really appreciate that. I need all of the prayers I can get. If anything, just for answers. That's what I'm looking for. Just answers. What is going on? But I do thank you guys again for joining me. I will look forward to seeing you all on Monday. If any news pops up, of course, I'll be on the social media talking about it. And I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. We'll see you all Monday.